So like, we're going to talk about two trials today. One is a long-term P&K trial that we have in Roseau. I'm a site agronomist at University of Minnesota Research Farm there, a 40-acre site. Started in 2019. We're going to go for 4 years, talk about that, and then some work that Dr. Kaiser. So the small plot P&K long-term trial, this is what we're talking about. We're looking at yield goals of here for soybeans, that for wheat. For us up in Roseau, those are attainable goals. They're not pie in the sky. If Mother Nature cooperates and if we do things right, we can get those. So those are what we shoot for. Like I said, the first year this project was here. It's going to go on for 2022 at least. We may do some more depending on what we find out. And this project is just a fantastic arrangement with the project partners. It took us a few years to put this together, but Afrac, wheat, soybeans, University of Minnesota, and Farmer Cooperative. It's been a fantastic project. Where are we at? We're up in here. Why did we do this in the first place? What was the kind of the reasoning for doing this long-term trial? Well, between 2007 and 17, a 10-year period, soybean acres increased in that geography about 700,000 acres. That's a big increase. The soybean yields did not. Pretty flat. Wheat yields did. About 15 bushels. Now, there's no question that soybeans in the wheat rotation makes wheat better for a lot of reasons. Why do we see this? That was a problem. So the idea of, well, maybe it's fertility. We know that a 50 bushel bean crop removes this and this. We know this was a pretty common mix-up right a couple years ago where I lived, in front of beans and wheat. If you do that, that's what happens. If you want to get that higher yields, you're mining the soil. Now, if you have that in the soil, that's great. The plant can get that. If you don't have that level, that caps it. That's great. That's all you're going to get. What's the textbook tell us? I was quite shocked at this actually. Wheat, soybeans, total, grain stover and total removal per bushel. That's a big number. That's a bigger number. What rhizobia does for us is fantastic in beans. If we didn't have those guys, we'd have to put that on to sustain that crop. So you can read it as well as I really want to point out is this. In Roseau, for 2019 to 2021, our yields range from 60 to 82 in wheat. Well, a 60 bushel, remove that and that. 82 is this and this. Well, that's a pretty big number. If we're only putting on 30, we're expecting a lot from the soil. In soybeans, that's the low 46, the highest 62. Look at this number, 73. To support that 62 bushel yield, we've got to have 73 pounds of hay to it. So that's kind of the take-home message there. Here's where I work. These are the people who work with me. A lot of the locals call this the grass seed farm. And those who have been there say, why would you call it that? Well, up in that part of the world, Kentucky bluegrass for seed, ryegrass for seed, now it's currants and pine fescues, and all those cool season grass seeds. That's kind of the popular for their raising. So specifics of what the project is. Wheat, soybean, yield goals. RCB was a design experiment. We took tissue test soil samples and collected some data. 2021, I don't know if I have to tell you this, but this we don't see in Roseau Very rare. Not sure about down here, but we don't see that very much. Here's the temperature from end on in Rosa. Beginning of the year, April, you're maybe cooler than average. Mid-May to June, 15 to 20 degrees higher than normal. June and August, July and August, maybe 10 to 15. So we're hot. We're also dry. Cracks in the ground, this is, a lot of times you see that at the end of the year. We're seeing these at the beginning of the year. In May, late May, early June. Cracks are like that, they got wider. Some guys said if you drop a wrench in there, you couldn't get it. You couldn't reach down deep enough in the ground. But they're wide. Just the light bar is average rain. Dark bar is what we got this year. So you can see in the May, June, July time frame, we're about half of them. Keep that in mind when you look at the results. So 2 sites, 1 wheat, 1 soybean. There's 15 treatments plus non-treatments, so 16 total. The P source is at 0.46, K source at 0.060, and the rates were 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100 of individual rates, P and K, and a pound. And they're all spring applied inappropriate before you plant. So the wheat, just real quickly, that's the amount of N we used. P and K are applied in May. Incorporated lengthered wheat at this. Tissue samples and harvested. That's an early harvest date for us. It's probably 3 weeks early. In beans, we see it in May. That's our final plant population. We took tissue samples and harvested the 13th, which is again early for us. By maybe close to a month, actually. So the 2 sites we had, one, both at the Magnusson farm, but one of them was a warm silt loam, the other is a very fine sandy loam. Organic matter is pretty much the same, pHs are 7 to 8. The big difference this year, one site had a low, the other one had a very high. We selected those on purpose. We're going to see how that P level changes over time. And you can see the salt level. So that's kind of the 2 sites. What we learned this year, these are the treatments. It's 1 to 16. There's a P alone, K alone, the compound. Because right after that, I would say this, look at here, this number is 7. A CV of 6.7. The CV of 6.7 gives us pretty good confidence that the data set's pretty tight. It's something that we feel pretty good about the results. This was the parts per million of P, 3.7 after harvest. So it's low. So keep that in mind when you look at the results. So the results will tell us this. That's bushels per acre, just background. You put 20, you got about 12 back. You put 40, you got about 20 back. Anything higher than 60, 80, it's pretty fine. The same thing happened with the combinations. The test weight protein, not a lot of difference, but I would say this. For spring wheat, this kind of protein, high 16s to 17s, doesn't happen very often for us. I'm not sure what you guys down here, but for us, we don't get that very often. We got it this year. Of course, what's the elevator tell us? Protein's protein. We don't worry about it. We're not going to pay for that this year. So wheat's wheat. Soil test parts per million. Not surprising. Here, nothing. 3.7. You added 20 units every year. So 20 units in 19, 20, 21. We're up to 5.5. 100, we're up to 16.8. So we are building peak, which is not surprising, but we can build. So what we can do with this, after we get next year's data done, we can figure out how much you can build, how much you can remove, and depending upon the price of fertilizer, if it's high, maybe scale back a little bit. If it's not, maybe pour the post, and if you want to build your soil, depending on what your yield goal is. So, how are we doing on time, Chris? Give me the hook here. I got to get to Kaiser in a minute. K level had to be, to get more than this background, good to be up over 8. Just a little, probably better to see what the wheat yields were. 0, about 60, put 20 of P, a little over 70, 40, about 80. It's flat from here on in. Now, what would happen if the yield, Mother Nature smiled on us and said the yield was 100 bushel of wheat? What do you think would happen? We don't know, but you could guess maybe if P was limiting, this might be up here. Maybe. Right? You don't know. That's what we know. How are we doing on time, Chris?
You're good.
Okay, so here this graph what points out the soil parts per million P. From the beginning, the dark line, 2019. That's where we started. 2021. So you don't put any P on, this is K only. You're not going to change your P rate, which makes sense, right? What's kind of interesting is here we're putting 80 units of P 3 years in a row. We increase that from about 5 over 50. Over here, the combination for, and I don't have an explanation for it, the combination of P and K, we had more higher P soil test values. You know, we're up close to 20, starting with 5. Now, is that too high? Maybe. Depends on what you want to do. K was a different story. I mean, there's not a lot of change there. And you know, Dan Kaiser, he's got some ideas. We'll talk about it in a minute, what he's working on. But it's pretty flat. There must be pretty good buffering in these soil types that we use to have really not a lot of change. Even with our highest rate of 100 units of K put on 3 years in a row. Soybeans, when you find out, same kind of setup. This was the LSD, a little higher CV. Suffice to say, no difference in yield. Do a range from 46 to 54, so we're on the low end, what we'd like to see. No differences in protein or oil. We did see a difference in P, it had to be higher. Now remember, this is a higher testing P location. This is what we saw in soybeans this year. I'm sure you guys did the same thing. If you're in if you had the lighter textured soil, is worse. A little heavier texture was quite so bad. Depending upon the water holding capacity of the soil. So we saw this a lot, and then instead of 3 beans, you had 3 beans, we had 1 small one, and then really nothing else. So I think I'll skip through these and get to Kaiser. How much time I got, Chris?
A few minutes.
Okay, so Dan, that's what he sent me. He wanted me to share this. What they're doing, and he really wants to update the K classifications in both corn and soybeans. What he said is this: he updated the ppm range in soil K, an increase in K in the medium and high soil testing sites. There's no removal-based recommendations yet. That's what he's working on. So the current research. Revamp, oops, come back here. Maybe not. So why can't I go back? Good.
They're recording it.
So I can't go back. So now what do All right, so that's going to make this go on real quick. Dan Kaiser's results are in here. I'll have his contact information to show in a minute. But basically, this is what his take-home message was. You know, if you're short of potash, apply it. Okay, not rocket science, but it sounds silly, but it's true. So the greatest risk for yield loss is applying higher rates of potash in soils that do not need it. So the take-home message, soil test, know what you have, right? Now, I know some guys up our way, so we take a soil test. Well, we did a few years ago, and we're just kind of going off of that. And you may not have to take it every year, but I think to have a good idea what's going on, we got to update the database and information. Soil test, potassium, if you don't need it, especially on soybeans, don't do it. If a soil indicates potassium is low or very low, that's kind of where you want to be, ahead of soybeans, in Kaiser's work. And if you're worried about some chlorine that might have an impact, this is the strategy: 2/3 in the crop before soybeans, be it wheat, corn, and then put the third of that ahead of soybeans. So sorry about that snafu here with the slides. Contact information. Kaiser said he's not either email or phone, and especially now that I didn't really get a chance to share too much what he was talking about. But it's in this book. You know, page 16 was the kind of the results of what he had. And if you want to get a hold of me for whatever reason, there it is. Field research for hockey or ice fishing or any of those things, that's okay. Questions, comments? Sir?
So we weren't able to raise the potassium levels?
Potassium levels in these two sites, in the 3 years we've done it really couldn't build potassium level. Why is that? Several theories, but don't have a good answer why. I think it's due to the buffering capacity of the clay that we have. That's just a theory. But the soil test K was high, so keep that in mind. If the soil test K was low to begin with, then we could build, more than likely. Just again, my gut feel.
There's a lot of people that say that about 100.
Right, and in Kaiser's work, he used 100 and 200 for his work, and he averaged those, and you know, he had some different soil types than what we do, but he could build. In this site, we couldn't build. Yeah, we'll see.
Couple more questions.
Anybody else? Yes.
When you said the max we put on is 100 pounds, you talking about 100 pounds of potash or 100 pounds of K?
100 pounds of K.
K.
Right, so 100, so for 100 units, so actual 100 of K,
K.
and actual 100 of P. So it's not, and keep in mind, those are put on the 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, that's put on every year to that same plot. So after this year, we'll have 400 pounds of P on some sites, 400 pounds of K, and then the combination of less than that. So when we're all said and done with this, what we're going to do, being this is all set up, I'm not sure, but there's some interesting things we can do. As far as guys say, I want to build my P, what can I do? We can't say much building K because we can't do it in our soil. Others you can.
If you start high.
If you start high, and that's
What about the base saturation K? Was that going up or percentage?
percentage, the base set, I can't answer that. We didn't, I think that's in the soil test report, but I didn't read it. But that's, I will find it.
How many years into this project?
This
How many
is,
years left?
this is the third year of the project. We've got one more year left on what it was scheduled. Yes, sir.
If you found anything on economic returns when you start adding 20, 40, 60?
The economic returns, a little bit. I didn't share that today, but at the start, when fertilizer prices were a little bit lower, wheat prices were a little bit lower. It didn't look so good. Surprisingly, when the wheat price was higher, even though the fertilizer price was a little higher, it was better. Now, I'd say a little higher. I'm not talking about what they're talking about for spring of 2022. I'm not talking that high. So then that may be different.
And you had a chart though, just with results. Where's the chart available?
The chart's available here, or online. I mean, I think there'll be, but this chart has both Kaisers and the presentation I gave.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you have a soil test of naturally high potassium, if you can't build, how come you can't drag it down? Or can you drag it down by applying?
Well, we'll find that out here in these sites. I think, guys that have high K around here, I don't know if you put on much. Is that true? Guys that farm around here, is that right or wrong? Anybody?
Removal anyway.
You just put removal, but you don't try to build, do you? I don't know.
Big or max? What do you guys do?
What do you guys do? Be the high testing K, I don't think you. What's that? No, so that's kind of what we're seeing. It was kind of surprising to us because guys in the grassy business, they just pour on, the P and K just routinely. Thank you.